for it.
So you didn't know that the legal part of our asylum process is removing people to safe third countries so we don't have to harbor them all here, right?
That's awesome. I would be for that.
Okay, that's already what happens. Why are you fear-mongering over the system that you have no fucking idea about?
You said wanted to hear about your prompt. Trump has been terrible. In what regard would you say?
I think he's been very divisive. I think that he's not a good leader. I think that the deportations have been wildly immoral. I think that the pardon of the J6ers was really, really bad.
What do you think is immoral about the deportations?
Well, real quick, so Obsidian, you got removed for bullying and harassment, so I just wanted to let you know why I dropped you. Because I think he was removing people under the Alien Enemies Act, and I think that, and it was already litigated that he was not giving people the ability to challenge their designation as an alien enemy. And I think that punishing somebody without the ability for them to challenge the accusation that the government is making against them is immoral.
Okay, so you are equating morality to legality, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Well, I think they were illegal for different reasons, but I'm also saying that they're immoral because, like, if you're accused of something by the government, you should have the ability to challenge that accusation.
Do you think that there should be a penalty for people entering the country illegally?
Yes.
What do you think the penalty should be?
Probably deportation.
So you don't necessarily disagree with the deportation, you just disagree with how they're going about it, per se.
Yeah, I don't like compromising rights in order to make deportations happen quicker.
So then let's naturally take this to the next step. If everybody gets their day, if every illegal that's in this country, and the estimates vary depending on the source, and every single one of them gets a court date, which we already know a good portion of them won't show up to the court date, but if they do, how long do you think that would tie up the immigration court system?
That's not even necessary. I'm not saying that we need to provide every one of them with a court date. I'm saying that they need to have some mechanism by which they challenge their deportability, challenge the country that they're being deported to, or their designation as deportable. That doesn't necessarily mean that you would need to do it through, a formal court process. That doesn't mean that every person who would have a formal court process would necessarily take it, because a lot of people just don't. But that should be an option.
So I understand what you're saying. I think this is where we're splitting and disagreeing, because I think you forfeit the option the second you illegally enter the country.
Are you saying legally you do or morally you do?
Well, I mean, we can argue either one. I would say probably morally.
Well, so if we were to argue legally, you absolutely don't get rid of that right, and the Supreme Court has upheld multiple times that you have that ability to challenge deportation to a third country, challenge designation as an alien enemy.
So it seems that you want this to be done through some sort of legal process, but you just admitted that probably giving everybody their day in court is not the most efficient way to go about it. So what would you say to do?
Well, first of all, I'm more interested in upholding legal rights and moral rights than efficiency. But I'm saying that there has been other cases where legally it has been determined that somebody's due process rights were fulfilled, even though it wasn't through like a formalized immigration court. So I'm saying that there's other ways to do it, but they should always have the ability to appeal to something outside of the executive to challenge their deportation. And it's to make sure that we can protect everybody's rights. Because if an illegal immigrant's due process rights or an illegal immigrant's ability to challenge an accusation from the government gets stripped of them, then we're going to probably see the government feel way more comfortable stripping other people's rights to challenge accusations.
So if an illegal immigrant gets a deportation order back to their country of origin, should they have a legal claim to challenge that deportation order?
Yes.
For what reason?
Yeah, it could be for a multitude of reasons. One, that maybe they're an asylum seeker. Two, or necessarily off the grounds of asylum, that there's some reason that they can't return to their country of origin, whether or not it be drug trafficking, whether or not it be sex trafficking, whether or not it be political persecution. There should be some bars to say, hey, maybe this isn't a good, like a humane place to send people back to.
So
Um,
you are, so I get where you're coming from, but you're opening the door to basically every illegal immigrant that gets a deportation order to just say, "Hey, my country is, de facto more dangerous than the United States. Therefore, I'm challenging this."
no, while the bar isn't more dangerous than the United States, the bar is likely to cause like imminent harm on the grounds of a protected class.
Now, how would they go about proving that?
That's something that's done through asylum courts.
Well, see, seeking asylum is differently than, just being deported for being here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're getting in kind of this gray area where we're conflating no, I wouldn't say necessarily conflating the two, but that's something totally different.
Well, that's one of the processes by which you would challenge your deportation back to your home country, is if you're claiming asylum, or if
So
you're seeking a withholding order.
so okay, so again, I get where you're saying, but then that's giving people cause to enter the country illegally. Then when they get a deportation order, they're just saying, "Actually, I want to seek asylum,"
Do you
instead of
understand the door that you are opening as well?
well, hold on, let me finish. Instead of just going to seek asylum through the port of entry the legal way.
It's legal for them to claim asylum that way
Correct.
as well.
I know that's what I'm saying. They can legally come to the port of entry and claim asylum, but
Well, it's
the reason
legal
you're
for them to
giving
claim asylum in the way that I'm prescribing as well. That's legal as well.
for them to illegally come into the country and then just claim asylum.
Yes, that's legal.
Under what cause? I don't think I've read that before. If you have some sort of source, I'd
Yeah,
be glad to read on
give me one. But I need to make sure that like if we're looking at morally. Okay, so here's the. Oh, all right. Before I move on, I found it quicker than I thought I would. U.S. Code 1158. Any alien who is physically present in the United States who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after being interdicted in international or United States waters, irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum.
Wow, we have such a dog shit immigration system in this country.
But okay, so now that we established that that's legal, do you understand that the door that you're opening, if we don't allow that to happen,
Go on.
that we would just be sending somebody back to a country where they are not physically safe, and that we would probably just be sentencing them to political persecution or death?
Yeah, that's not our problem though.
Do you think it would be a moral thing for that to happen?
Um, Again, we can make that case for like probably hundreds of millions of people on the planet. So I mean, if that's the case you want to go to, then this country would just end like tomorrow.
Well, we've been doing this since the asylum processes have been created, and the country somehow hasn't fallen yet. But
But
like
would you say
you
our
do you
immigration
agree
system
that
is in
that
a
would
good
be? Do
place
you
right
agree with
now?
me that that would be immoral?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think we have some sort of obligation to not send
Nope,
political prisoners
absolutely not.
back?
It's not our problem at all. Not our
Why?
problem even in the slightest.
Why?
What do you think? Just play with this for a second. What do you think would happen if you went to a foreign country and just said, "Oh, hey, I'm showing up here illegally, but like,
It would
if I
depend on
go
their
back to the
laws.
United States, I would get killed."
If they're signed on to the refugee contract like we are, the refugee convention, and if they have the same asylum laws, then it's going to be the same exact thing.
So, do you think our immigration system is in a good place right now?
Probably not,
Okay, why?
because I don't think that we have a process by which we process people's asylum claims quick enough.
So that's a good point, and that's what the point I wanted to get to. So, but then if you just kind of open the door to anyone who is under political persecution, it's just going to increase,
Do you
right?
think the answer to that is to turn away all asylum seekers, or to go through like allocate more resources to process asylum claims quicker?
No, I think it is to greatly reduce the amount of asylum seekers coming into the country.
Even though like
Greatly
even though we
reduce.
turn away like what was it, 80% of them?
Yeah, I don't
You
know
think
if
we
it's
should
eighty
just
percent.
reduce
I
the
would have to see
opportunity
that.
to file instead of go through the litigation quicker?
I think we should just take in a lot less.
Even though if we send them back to their country of origin, they are going to likely be killed. That's the line that you have to get for asylum.
Right, but then again, you're opening up the system to all these people here.
And you would have to prove the harm in that.
How do you do that?
I don't know. That's your claim. I don't know how you want me to
Oh no,
prove
no,
your
no.
claim.
I mean, how would you prove as an asylum seeker that your life is in terminal danger in your home country?
You could say that I'm of this political affiliation, and in this country they've been persecuting people of this political affiliation. Or you could say that in my past I was raped in this country while I was on the border, and sending me back to that country would probably condemn me back to the same drug trafficking or sex trafficking. Like that's those are typically grounds for asylum.
That is so like hearsay. Anybody can show up and say that though. Would you? I mean, would you agree that anybody who wants to come to the country can just show up and kind of make that claim?
Yeah, the there is proof that you need to provide at an asylum hearing. And just because I don't know off the top of my head what the standard of proof is for an asylum hearing, that doesn't mean that we should shut down asylum and send them all back to the country.
Yeah, I just think that we have a moral disagreement on Trump's immigration policy. I mean, we can switch topics to a different policy if you want, but I don't think we're going to come
No,
to a terminal conclusion.
I don't think we should, because I think the authorization that the Trump supporters do of immigrants as if they're not people, and as if like sending them back to a country where they're going to be killed is just like whoopsie daisies, or like that's not my
Would
problem. That feels
would
like
you
super immoral to me.
would you say we have? Would you say a country has a moral obligation to serve its citizens first?
First, probably, yeah,
Okay,
but first doesn't mean only serve our citizens and serve nobody else, especially when asylum is a route to citizenship.
so I would make the claim that the American middle class in this country has suffered so long for the last 60 years that it is in America's best interest to greatly reduce asylum seekers, to greatly reduce immigration before we take those people so we could uplift the middle class.
How is reducing asylum going to result in benefiting the middle class?
Diverting legal funds, diverting government funds.
Why wouldn't you just make the argument that maybe like reduce defense spending, and then we wouldn't have to doom these people
That's a
to a
great
life
idea
of death?
too. I'm pro reducing the defense spending.
But then we could, not condemn these asylum seekers who are people who are escaping political or personal persecution to a country where they're going to be killed.
Yeah, see we're kind of going in a circle here because again, anybody can make that claim.
Do you want me to look up the burden of proof for an asylum hearing?
Maybe I just don't know it, but yes, I'd be interested in seeing what that is.
Also, asylum is off the point that I was making, by the way. But
It says that they must prove to the
they,
government that they meet the definition of a refugee.
yeah, they need to prove that they meet the definition of a refugee, provide evidence of past persecution or circumstances that would create for future persecution. So if you're referencing past persecution, you have to provide evidence of the past persecution. If you're referencing future persecution, I would assume that you have to point to social trends within the country or certain legislation that passed that's going to persecute you on the grounds of who you are in that country, which I think is a fine bar. But I also think that it's interesting that you came in here to say that we should be turning these people away, or to defend that point without knowing the process by which we admit these people at all.
I wouldn't say I'm 100% on how people are admitted. I mean, I knew it had to do with some kind of, claiming as a political refugee or something like that. But again, like how do you go about proving that? Like a paper document trail
In some cases, probably,
that
yeah.
you're established with this ex political party and this and that.
Yeah,
Are
probably.
you
I mean, that's probably why the amount of asylum claims get shot down at like super high rates.
D are you arguing that, like, are you arguing for like immigration reform, or are you arguing so that we don't like have immigration? Like, do you not want anyone coming in, or do you want it to be more reformed so that it's harder to come in?
Also, I'll let that question go, but I more or less want to keep it 1-1.
Okay.
But I mean, if he wants to answer that question.
64% denied.
Mhm.
Wow, that is a lot more than I thought. I don't think it's 80%, but that is more than I thought.
It might be lower. It could have been 80 maybe in past years. Maybe.
Let me ask you this: do you think Trump's policy on immigration, on what he ran on, not even in 2024, but even way back in 2015 and 2016, do you think that played a role in him getting elected?
Yeah, probably.
How so?
I think this is probably going to be a really unsatisfying answer, but I think mainstream media are really good at fear mongering around issues that the American people don't understand because of their complexity, and immigration is one of them. Nobody knows how our immigration processes work. Nobody knows how the border works, and they just see that all of these scary people who are coming in and killing people, like the Tucker Carlson segments were portraying. They were portraying that these people were just coming in and raping people. Like Donald Trump was saying, they're not sending their best, they're sending their drug dealers and rapists. So they're really good at fear mongering. So that's probably why.
The Huffington Post released an article way back, I think in 2014, that said 70 to 80% of women crossing the border are sexually assaulted or raped. So men coming across the border are raping women.
First of all, no, that's not a jump that you can make. And then second of all, why would that not be an argument for more asylum? That people are being raped as they're being pushed over the border. Why would that not be more of a claim for asylum rather than sending them back to Mexico where they got raped?
No, they're raped on their journey over.
Yeah, which would be in Mexico, right? So why would we send them back to the country where they got raped?
So why would we admit people who are raping women?
Why would we not admit the raped women?
Why would we admit the rapists?
Can you please answer that question? Why would we not admit the women who got raped?
Because
you're talking about getting rid of asylum. Those people are definitional asylum seekers. Those are the people exactly what withholding of removal and asylum is made for.
I mean, if you want to let anybody in who's been sexually assaulted or raped, then again we're opening the door to a massive amount of people, not just from South America, but to the Middle East as well.
Is that?
Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, why is that? Yeah,
dude, because we can't just let people in just because they have a hard life in their country.
Do you understand that we've been doing that since the 1950s?
Yeah, and you just agreed our immigration system is shit. So maybe that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, the reason that I said our immigration is shit is because our immigration system is so backed up because we don't have the resources to process claims quick enough. It's not because we're letting in rape victims. That's not why our immigration system is bad.
So you want to divert more funds and let in more people?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. This is why Trump won.
I mean, I can say the same thing, that like the reason why Trump's approval ratings are in the fucking toilet is because Republicans don't have enough empathy to say that maybe we should be letting in rape victims, especially when we're fear-mongering over the people that are raping them.
How is it fear-mongering to say we shouldn't let rapists come in the country?
The fear-mongering and the concern trolling is where you say, yeah, we shouldn't be letting these dangerous rapists in the country because they're raping all of the women that are trying to come over the border, and we also want to kick all of those women back into the country where they're getting raped. It's blanketly immoral.
Yeah, two things can be true at once. It's not our moral obligation to let in every woman who's been raped, and also we shouldn't allow rapists to come in the country. Both of those things
we should be sending them back to the country where they came from to get raped again, right?
Again, so we're just going to let every woman.
Am I correct? That is what you're saying, is that we should send them back to get raped?
It's not our moral obligation to let everybody who's been raped or sexually assaulted into the country.
Okay, and you realize that you disagree with like the American populace on that. You disagree with our current immigration laws on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you understand why I'm a little hesitant to accept your worldview when you're saying that we should be sending these people back to the countries where they're getting raped?
So let me ask you this. What number of people should we let in per year who have been raped?
We should be processing people's asylum claims as quickly as possible.
Would you ever draw a cap on the amount of women who have been raped coming in the country?
Probably not.
Okay, so you would let any woman all over the world, as many as possible, come in the country just because they were sexually assaulted.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you another question about our asylum
No,
process
no, no,
because
no,
I
no.
almost
Answer the question,
I
bro.
promise you that you don't know. You
Answer the
understand
question, bro.
you understand that we can remove asylum seekers to safe third countries, right? Or did you not know that?
No, I did know that, but that's not what you were just arguing
You
for.
didn't.
If
So
wanna
you
ar-
didn't
wanna
know
argue
that our the legal part of our asylum process is removing people to safe third countries, so we don't have to harbor them all here, right?
That's awesome. I would be for that.
Okay, that's already what happens. Why are you fear mongering over the system that you have
That's
no
not what
fucking
you just
idea
said,
about?
though. You said to let them into our country.
I said to let
Yeah, you're
valid asylum seekers come in. How does that How does that
to our country?
Yeah, and then after they're in our country and have a valid asylum claim, we can remove them to a safe third country as the asylum laws dictate. So why are you
Okay,
fear
so are you
mongering
gonna
over this
answer my
process
question?
you have no fucking idea about?
So you're going to answer my question. How many women that have been raped can come in the country would you allow?
As
Would you-
many as have a valid asylum claim.
So 5 million. You would let in 5 million women.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stay in the United States, but yeah, I wouldn't remove them back to the country where they got raped like you would.
Would you let in 50 million who have been raped?
I wouldn't remove them back to the country where they got raped like you
That's
would.
not what I'm asking. Would you let them in?
Yes.
Okay, again, this is why you guys lost, and this is why Trump won.
Yeah,
because
okay,
your-
and you lost in
your
2020
moral
because you
duty
want to
knows
send them
no
back to the
bounds.
rape country. I mean,
And
we can
y'all
play
lost-
this
y'all lost
game
in
where you just want to
2024.
fucking
Hold this
virtue
L.
signal instead of actually talk about
Hold
the
this
issue,
L, and you're
but
gonna
you
lose
don't
again.
actually want to engage
the
with the
L,
fact
hold
that
the
you
L,
are
hold
sending
the
people
L.
back to get raped. It's disgusting. Like, yeah, you can optics concern me all you want. You had no rebuttal to what I said. You're just sending them back to a country for them to get raped. That's disgusting. And you have no idea about how the asylum process works, and you want to come up here and try to argue with me about it. If you want to reform our immigration system, I would really, really consider knowing any fucking thing about it. Rinyald, your claim is intellectually dishonest? Well, listen, it's open request up here, buddy.
Rest in peace, that guy. Yeah, I don't know. That was just weird.
It's because genuinely Republicans don't view brown people as human. Like, I am genuinely to that point. I genuinely think that's the problem.
That's why he brought up Muslim nations or Middle
Yeah,
Eastern
you
nations.
would let Middle Easterners into the country?
Why does it matter? Yes.
Oh, no. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I knew he was unfaithful when he said that.
Felici. How's it going?
So,
You're looking at it.
hello. Hi.
Also, like, Republicans want to fearmonger over asylum so much. Like, genuinely just reading U.S. Code 1158, the guidelines for asylum. This is a system that's not going to be overwhelmed. We can deport people to safe third countries. We can terminate their asylum if the grounds on that their asylum claim was decided aren't the case anymore. It's the same thing for withholding of removal.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Just go read it. I don't